And one of WeChat's goals is to be the single place to go for all your daily needs, including financial services, and therefore one of the biggest threats you'll face. Stephanie Warner and I have collected data from more than 1,000 companies globally and done many, many workshops on trying to answer that question. And we came up with 6 key questions that we think senior management teams have to discuss, answer, and have an honest dialogue about if they're going to thrive in the digital era. So what I'd like to do now is just give you a quick sense of what those 6 questions are. And you can see here the very bright cover of the book. So the first question is trying to understand what's the level of threat that you face in your organization and also opportunity. So I'd like you to imagine that you're the CEO of a large European bank and that times are tough. Economy is tough, there's pressure on margins, your customers' satisfaction scores aren't brilliant. There are all kinds of new regulations coming around privacy and around open banking. And you have a whole lot of new competitors that are sort of biting at your heels. Competitors that are online banks or platform companies that are starting to offer financial services. And even more scary, about 18 months ago, you went to China and you took your team out for dinner. And you, at the end of this meal, you went to pay and you took out your credit card and the proprietor said, no credit cards. And you said, oh, sorry, okay, I'll get you cash. And he said, no cash. And you said, so how do you pay? And one of your young Chinese colleagues said, WeChat. And you said, what's WeChat? And so he explained that WeChat is an incredibly important everyday occurrence for many 900 million Chinese people. And one of WeChat's goals is to be the single place to go for all your daily needs, including financial services, and therefore one of the biggest threats you'll face. So as you think about all those experiences you've had, you would have to say, threat's pretty high. And so the next question you have to ask is, what is the right business model for us? If the business model we have is under significant threat, what's the right business model for us? And so fundamentally, you sell products today. You sell car loans, house loans, foreign exchange. But it turns out what your customers really want are to solve their life events, like buy a car, find and buy a car, find and buy a house, find and book and go on a trip. And so you really have 2 choices. You can either manage the first model, which is under significant threat, which is going to be a lot about cost cutting and probably death of 1,000 cuts. Or you can say, well, we will move to a different model that really tries to meet the needs, the life event needs of our customers. And so the third question you have to ask, and this one's a bit more optimistic, is what is your current competitive advantage in the digital era? And it turns out you have quite a few. You have customers, you have branches, you have products, you have amazing data. You might not use them all as well, you might not integrate them all as well, but you have significant competitive advantage. And that's one of the hardest questions I find in working with senior management teams, to have an honest conversation about, what are our competitive advantages and how do we really make the most of them? So the next question says, what does the digital era help? How does it help you? How do you connect better? Fundamentally, digital is about connecting. And so one of the really interesting opportunities for you as a bank is to put your customer in control through their mobile device. And maybe IoT, and maybe big data, and maybe many other of the technologies that we'll talk about today. And so that's an interesting question, and you as CIOs have a very big role to play in all these questions, particularly that one. Again, a hard question is, what muscles do you have to develop to really deliver? So if you're actually going to deliver on the promise of life events, you have to partner with other companies who provide complementary products that meet the life event needs of finding that house, realtors and insurance companies. But you also have to be much better at integrating your siloed products to deliver on a single point of life event need. You have to be much better at analytics. You have to be faster. There are a whole lot of things that add up to a cultural change that you have to do. And finally, and probably the most difficult question, is do you have the leadership to pull this off? And an interesting statistic from our work is that about half of the ExCo members, half of the executive committee members of companies that successfully transform turn over. And that's a very interesting statistic, and it also sets you up for a pretty significant change. And it's not just, of course, the executive committee, it's everybody in the organization has to be able to answer those questions.